Our guest today has a career that has spanned over 40 years. He has done over 21 records and has sold millions of copies. He has also celebrated a huge milestone, playing his 1,000th show. And that was last week. Please welcome none other than one of the most innovative musicians that we have seen in many, many genres, Mr. Gary Numan, on tour with Ministry and Frontline Assembly. You might also catch him flying over your hometown, as he is a licensed pilot and has a lot of fun with that. Mr. Gary Numan, welcome to the Zero Hour Squared Classics. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on our YouTube channel and on our show.
My pleasure, thank you.
And again, you are touring with Ministry and Frontline Assembly. This is the fourth date of the North American tour, am I correct?
Yeah, we've done two with Ministry so far.
Okay.
Frontline. I did one on my own yesterday, and tonight
cool.
is the fourth one of the tour, but the third with Ministry. We're doing the Ministry tour, but I noticed there was quite a lot of breaks in it, and so I just filled them.
Oh, cool.
So as they have a break, we just go off and play somewhere else, then we just rejoin them again. It happens quite a lot.
Oh, cool.
So I like to be busy.
Welcome to Albuquerque. Have you ever played here? I don't recall.
I don't think so. We were talking about that this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I thought I had played in New Mexico before. But I'm not sure where else it would be if it wasn't here. So I don't know if I have actually. I couldn't find any record of it, so maybe not.
Albuquerque is the biggest municipality in the state, and I don't recall the only other places, maybe Santa Fe or Las Cruces, but I don't ever recall or I've been at that show because I'm a huge fan.
I have a terrible memory at the best of times. So.
Right, yeah. I hear
I
you.
might have done, I just don't remember.
Okay, well, welcome, and
thank you.
We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us on the night of this tour. So let's get into the 1,000th show. Man, holy cow! That you did that last week, April. What was it? 13th, 14th, and 15th. You played your 997th, 98th, 98th, 99th, and 1,000th show.
Yeah.
Back to back to back. But that was in England.
Yes, in London. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you celebrate that? What was that like? 1,000 shows. How many does that average a year? Like 22, 23, something like that?
Well, the funny thing is, I when I said 1,000, I know it's a lot, but I just think it would have been more.
Oh yeah, it seems like it.
I felt like I've been doing it forever. 1,000. So
yeah,
that's what it is, and I guess it is a lot, but I've been doing it for such a long time.
Right.
But there were periods actually. There were definite periods where I didn't tour very much. It took me quite a long time to get to really be comfortable with it and to enjoy it. I was very nervous to begin with. I didn't like the lifestyle that came with it. I missed home. I was quite sort of immature about it, I think, and that went on for a few years, and then the career sort of crumbled quite badly for quite a long time, and I didn't do that much, and then he decided it's probably why it's been the second half of the career that's been more satisfying, I guess. More recently it's been doing much better. I really realised how cool a thing touring was to do. I really sort of fell in love with it later than I should have done.
Right.
And then you get the confidence and experience, and and then it becomes a fun thing to do rather than something to be scared of. So, but I was a little bit later coming to that than I should have been, I think.
Well, your career spans 4 decades, as we mentioned. Your first hit, obviously, 79 in Cars. I was kind of doing the math, and I was remembering to myself, God, I remember when that came out, but I didn't realize it was still 1979, not in the 80s, when the alleged new wave movement came about. And I call it alleged because I never really appreciated the title of that for a lot of the artists that came out in that era. You guys, Men at Work, Kraftwerk, bands like that. There was a lot of Missing Persons, The Fix. All those bands were more than just the tag of new wave. Did that ever kind of bother you a little bit, as it kind of does me? Because I thought what you were doing, you were as a pioneer in terms of music and how it crafted in the 80s and then the 90s and subsequently now. But did that hinder a lot of artists at that time because of that tag, new wave?
I think so, yeah. I mean, and it varies from country to country. Here in America, the new wave thing, it seemed to cover a much wider range of music than it did in England, for example. In England, it was more to do with, again, my memory's struggling to be accurate about this, but I believe that the new wave thing in Britain was more to do with when the electronic thing started to happen and your romantics and things that come after that. Over here it's different. You seem to encompass far more things than that. Like labels are just they can be sort of, they can misguide you.
Right. It's like typecasting in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's sort of like lazy journalism.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer, because that's how I feel. Yeah. Because your body of work, I mean, 4 decades, I don't know where to begin, Gary. I'm a little bit starstruck. I'll be honest with you. I've appreciated you for a long time. My wee years in being introduced to MTV was, if it wasn't for that, I would have never seen or heard Cars until it came on. And I know you talked about that song probably ad nauseum, thousands and thousands and thousands of times, but that was the catalyst for what you've had, a very remarkable career, and the resurgence by some of the younger generations right now in terms of what Gary Numan is in the landscape of music is quite fascinating. Are you? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's been. It feels to me as if it's always been a struggle. I've had again, it's country by country. I envy those people that have had a career that was global and was pretty consistent globally. They were massive here, massive there, massive there. Mine hasn't been like that. Mine's been brilliant there, lasted a bit, good there, suddenly vanished. Pretty good over there, lasted for a little while, then come back again. It's all over the place, and I used to be really bothered by it. But I think over the last sort of 5 or 10 years or so, I've grown to, I just don't really care about it anymore. And what I've become is just grateful that I'm still able to do it at all. I'm 65 now, and I've been doing this. I got my first record contract in 1978, so like 45 years. I'm grateful that I can still get on a tour bus and travel around the world and play shows. Sometimes they're in big arenas and sometimes they're not, and it just depends what country I'm in, sometimes even what part of the country that I'm in.
Right.
And I've learned to just appreciate the fact that it's a really, really cool thing to do, whether you're playing Wembley Arena or a club in Boise, which I did on the last tour.
Cool.
And this sort of up and down sort of nature of my career and the level that I'm at the moment, I've just come to accept it and be grateful that I'm still able to do it at all. There's plenty of people can't. Plenty of people got much bigger than me, for longer than me, and have now disappeared.
Right.
Just be grateful that you're doing what you love. And if things go well and you get into bigger places, and that's fantastic. And I'll be glad if that happened here. I'm glad that it's happened in Britain, and it's happened again in Europe. But that's not really. So I try to get into my children, because my children are now moving into this, children especially.
Right.
And I'm trying to say to them, if the objective is the cherry on top of the cake, then you're missing all of the cake. You need to enjoy what you do. And if you become successful, well, that's just a bonus. But because your day to day isn't going to be that. Your day to day is going to be getting up, going to the studio, doing the work, getting on the bus, slogging around. Sometimes it'll be successful, sometimes it won't. You might get successful and it fades away again. You've got to fight to get back there. The whole journey isn't guaranteed. Even if you become successful, it's not guaranteed you're going to stay there. You've just got to enjoy doing it. And if you can do that, then you're going to have a lovely life, because it's a fantastic way to live a life. I've enjoyed almost all of it, not every bit of it, but most of it, because it's not all about just becoming successful or famous. That's amazing when it happens. The last few albums in Britain, I got to number 2, the last 2, maybe a bit lower. I never really expected that would happen again for me, so that was amazing. That was a lovely feeling. I cried on the first one like a baby for about a minute. I couldn't believe it. It was just such a wonderful thing. But it didn't matter. I didn't enjoy making that one any more than I did the one before or the one after. That's what's important. I enjoyed making a record, still do. I enjoy touring. Hopefully you always will. And if I'm in a position that we suddenly find ourselves doing better, we can go to bigger places, then that's great.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter because I just like the life, you know.
Right. When did you finally realize that the music and the heart, the creativity, the theatrics, everything that you were putting together would finally separated from the fact that, okay, the quote-unquote industry and everything that goes with it, the stuff that people don't see behind the scenes, the pressure of having to sell a certain amount of records, the pressure of having to get radio airplay, the pressure of being a successful megastar. When did it finally dawn on you that you were more successful just thinking and doing things on your terms versus, say, what the industry might have you do?
1992 to 94. I know exactly when it happened.
Really?
1992, I did an album called Machine of Soul, which was probably the worst album I ever did. Creative low point. It was awful, really, and my reasons for doing it are all wrong. It was all about trying to salvage the career and trying to get back to some point, you know, that felt respectable, and I'm feeling embarrassed about where it got to, and so on and so on. Did this really bad record. Knew it was bad, but it really was the best I could do at the time. So you're stuck, really. Met my wife Gemma around about the same time, within months of that coming out, and then we had a fairly not torturous but difficult beginning to the relationship, because regarding music anyway, because I thought that what I was doing was the right thing, and she was trying to explain to me that what the changes that I've made to it, I'd taken out the very thing that fans liked about it in the first place, and there was lots and lots of different things that we talked about to do with music, but because of that and because of her enthusiasm for it, and she introduced me to lots of other things, lots of other bits of music that I hadn't heard before, she was able, over about a year or so, to make me think differently and make me see it differently. And I fell in love with it all over again, like I had when I was a teenager, and that changed everything. And I started to write music again simply because I liked it and I loved it, not because I thought the record company would be happy, not because an A&R man has suggested you do this or that. Mm-hmm. Not even because of the fans. It was entirely selfish again. I just wrote things that I was really passionate about, that I was really concerned about, and I realised then that I hadn't been doing that for years. It had all been about trying to save the career, and it was a huge turning point. So much so that it frightened me, in that I would at some point sort of slip back into that other sort of more commercial way of thinking, which I never wanted to do again. Mm-hmm. And I was so bothered about it that for years, I don't do it now, but for years, if I even thought to myself, as I was mixing a song, if I said, yeah, this would sound good on the radio, this, I would go, oh man, I'd erased it. I erased about 4 or 5 songs because I was, it might be more than that actually. Anyway, I erased stuff because I was so paranoid about slipping back into that old way of thinking. You know, it's not about radio players, not about record companies. Do you love this song? That's it. You know, will it ever get on the radio? Doesn't matter. You know, will fans like it? Doesn't matter. You know, that was all the thinking that I had before. You're just trying to please everybody else and trying to second guess what everybody else would want. And it was terrible. And I started to put out worse and worse records, you know. And then, thanks to her and rediscovering my love for it, I did an album called Sacrifice in '94, which is much heavier, much darker. Sort of religion and that. And I've been on that same path ever since, and I still have the same attitude about it. I don't care, really. I don't write for a purpose other than, do I love that piece of music? And I think the music has been much better because of it. Ironically, it's become more successful, but that is just a byproduct, you know. The intention was to just do what you love and hope for the best.
Your latest album is called Intruder, and that was in 2021, correct? Is that what it's working on? Yeah. So that's what you're probably playing a lot of that material, I'm guessing, on this tour, or is it a blend of all those 44 years, a little bit of this, a little bit of that? What are we looking at?
It's not much of a blend, actually. We do 2 songs from the early days, right. And the rest of it is from the last 10 years or so, maybe 12 years. It's really, we're with Ministry, You know, and I'm not interested in, with ministry. You want to be doing things that are more aggressive or more powerful because that's what it deserves. Which suits me down to the ground because that's the sort of stuff I want to do anyway. Most of the more recent albums have been leaning that way. And I hate nostalgia. So I don't like doing lots of other. Even when, like last night, we did our own show in Denver. We played about 18 songs, and I think 5 of them were older songs. And I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be ignorant of the fact that people are coming to see it, and some of those people will be preferring the older stuff.
Right.
I accept that, but there is a balance to the genre, I think, between those people and the other people that have come into it, and perhaps come into it through Trujillo or Savage and all the recent songs, or maybe because Trent said something nice, and those that brings people into generates an interest in you. But also, what I want to do, I want to be able to go out on stage and look down at the set list and be excited about the next song. That's great. I don't want to look down and go, oh fuck, not that one again.
I hear you.
Do you know what I mean? That's because then it becomes a job.
Right.
It's just a job.
Yeah.
And it mustn't be a job. It's got to be a passion. It has to stay a passion.
Right.
And you don't get that with just playing all the old stuff that old fans want to hear. You just got to keep moving forward all the time. Then it's really important. And if you move forward so far that you leave everybody that loved you before behind, and you don't attract any new people, then you're in trouble. But you have to do that.
Right.
I've been lucky enough in that I've moved forward constantly with the records, and I've been able to keep enough new people coming in to replace the older people that dropped off.
Right.
And I think there is certainly there's an element of that. And I don't just think it's because they don't like the music. I think people that were buying records in 1980 are old men now.
Yeah.
And they've got mortgages and kids and heavy commitments at work, and being able to go to gigs and buy albums isn't the big deal that it used to be when they were teenagers. So there is a natural wastage just because life affects you that way, let alone whether they don't even like the new stuff anymore, which is also possible.
True.
So you've got to keep bringing new people in just to stand still.
Right.
So to bring enough people in to actually see the career sort of slowly grind its way back up again. It feels like quite an achievement to me.
Right.
I feel quite proud of myself, but it's.
Well, I have like 50 questions I can ask, and I know we're limited on time, so I want to get into the kind of bare bones of what you got going on right now. But I will say this much: your impactfulness has crossed over so many genres. That's what's more unique, just above and beyond the time that you've spent playing, but pop, electronic, industrial, heavy metal, hardcore. I mean, all of these. You've had some impact in there one way or another as an influence, and I think that's absolutely fascinating. I know you probably don't want to be braggadocious about that, but that is what you are and what you were as a musician, and what people are drawn to Gary Numan so much. And I think that's a trait that hardly any musicians really get to enjoy, being able to cross so many barriers.
It's interesting. I've got to say, I remember reading an interview that Malcolm McLaren was doing actually about hip hop, and African Bambaataa was speaking, and we're talking about how whenever when hip hop was first beginning to happen, but was still very, very underground and so on, that it was my sort of music, early electronic music, that were the beats for what was going on, and it was really an important part of the development of it. And I had no idea about that, and I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. And I was really proud of that. Wish I hadn't been so ignorant of it for so long. But I had been. That sort of thing. When you read an interview by somebody who you admire, like this bloody Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead. Mm-hmm. Somebody just sent me an interview, Jerry Garcia, talking about me, liking the stuff, being scared to meet me,
Really?
Never met him. Never met
Oh,
him. You know.
man.
Yeah, he was intimidated to meet me, and like it was all written down.
Oh, wow.
That can't be true.
Yeah.
But I thought, wow, that's amazing. I sent it to my kids. I was so proud.
That's
Look
awesome.
at this. That's
That is-
amazing.
That's the damnest thing. That's awesome.
That's just, it's just unbelievable, you know. And I said, oh, I wish you hadn't. I'd love to have met him.
Yeah.
You know, how cool would that have been?
Right.
You know, so but it's lovely when you hear that sort of thing, and you read that sort of thing. Then it's amazing for me because I don't feel like that. You know, I really don't. You know, I get up in the morning, and I go into the bathroom, I look in the mirror, and all I see is somebody worried about what they're going to do next, and that's me. I know these new people have said these lovely things, and I know that I've been influential in different areas, and I am proud of that. But it doesn't change a thing in that I'm still terrified when I make a new album. I'm terrified I'm going to run out of ideas, that it's not going to be good enough. My time in the studio is fraught. I don't enjoy every moment of it, truthfully. I find it really, really difficult for a week or two. Then I'll have a really good day, and it sort of makes up for the 2 weeks before it. God for that, you know, come up with something. But in reality, you have been, but you know, you've been building towards it, and then it happens. But I don't go into the studio thinking that I'm God's gift to music, or that I'm going to be influential again. And, you know, so it hasn't made me confident. It hasn't made me think that I'm anything special at all. I feel really lucky. I think a big part of my influence, if you like, is that I was doing the right thing at the right time. You know, I was making electronic music, and I stumbled across it. I went to a studio to make a punk album, guitar-based 3-piece band, and there was a synthesizer in the corner, and I just used it. I thought, oh, that's amazing, you know. So I was on my way then, and then, you know, the next generation happens to have people in it like Trent and Dave Grohl, on, you know, all these other really, really clever people, and so they can, you know, so they mention me. Makes me look good, doesn't it? Yeah. Makes me look really good. Truth is, it probably could have been anyone. If I hadn't have done it, it would have been depression.
But clearly it was Gary Numan. Gary, we got to wrap this up. We've been simple, but I want to thank you very much. This has been an honor and a privilege to talk to you. I know you have. I wanted to get into it, but I'll mention it briefly for the viewers. That you do have an acoustic tour coming up after this.
Yeah.
After this tour, or somewhere in between. October. Okay, so that's a big undertaking. You also have an autobiography that's been out for a couple of years. What is the name of that?
I can't remember. Revolution.
Yeah, right.
My two, sorry.
Right. So
yeah, Revolution. R is in brackets. Revolution, evolution.
I'm fascinated by you. I'm thrilled to have you on, and I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you very much. Once again,
thank you.
Gary Numan right here on 0 Hour Squared Classics, and I want to thank him and everybody that helped make this interview possible. And one last question, in one line, if you were put in with some music, like a compilation of your music in a time capsule, what would you want in one line said about Gary Numan?
What would I said about me?
Yeah, in one line. With your music.
Stumbled across a synthesizer, changed a few things. Oh, probably it, really.
All right. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it. Very nice to see you, and looking forward to the set. Once again, Gary Numan. This is going to wrap it up with the 0 Hour Squared Classics. Take care.